I'm Richard Fritzke. I'm the Northeast Regional Diversity Biologist for the Pennsylvania Game Commission, and I'm doing I'm working on the Barn Owl Conservation Initiative in the Northeast part of Pennsylvania. And here we are at a barn in Northumberland County, and we're just investigating this one for possible nests. And we actually just found two nests. We're not positive that they're both active. We're pretty sure one of them is active because the adult was in the area at the top of the barn. There were 18 eggs, which is very strange because the most they really have is 10. So to have 18 tells me that it's possible that there's either two nests going on in the same spot, or one of them is an old clutch that just didn't hatch. The barn owl feather is it's got these stripes, dark splotches. It's let's say it's white on one side, darker tan on the other side of the quill, and then it's got these lines which are very dark. And what really is distinctive is at the very top of the feather are these is this a splotched color. It's a mix of all three colors: the white, the tan, and the dark brown. So that's their flight feather. That's the entrance, the only entrance to the top of the barn where the nest is, and that's where they're coming and going. Though they use the nest during the nighttime, in the daytime, they're likely to be found somewhere, hanging out somewhere else, like in the silo or another structure. So that's pretty typical that they won't even be in the same vicinity as the nest. One of the reasons that we banned them is because we're trying to determine just how, first of all, how far they're going. We've had them go as far from central Pennsylvania to North Carolina, 500-mile distances. So we're trying to figure out how far they're going, but we're also wanting to know as much as we can about their longevity. There's 4 eggs that are unhatched and then 3 that are missing. So it's very odd that just one hatches.
Daytime, that New Holland. I can't recall. Why is that?
Okay, yesterday, trying to milk that I think we got it down
Well, that was a good one, the one we had.
I say it's about
5
weeks, 4.5 weeks.
We sold them, I just can't remember.
Yeah, I would go with 5 weeks because it's you got some of the flight feathers coming out here. You can see they're fairly well developed. Yet you have a lot of down feather. He's still very fluffy. It's very healthy looking, which is good considering all his brothers and sisters didn't make it. My guess is if they left, oh, I see what you're saying. They weren't incubating the eggs and the eggs got cold?
Yeah.
That's very well possible. Did it get, you get some heavy frosts down here?
Yeah, we had days where it was getting, it was pretty warm during the day, and then we got, it was down to 28, 30 degrees at night.
Okay, yeah, that's quite possible that the eggs froze.
Which one of these are we working on for Mitch?
Yeah, because this is still early, it's early in the season, so that's the chance it could take.
That is a very good possibility. I didn't think about it. They like it. Larry Creek.
02912. I think I'm going to need this a little bit bigger. Yeah.
Can you sex them at this age?
No, unfortunately there's not much I can do about that.
I didn't the other day.
I was up there 4 days and only one was 20 gobbles. feet first.
So while he's doing that,
4 feet.
I'm gonna do a measurement on 7th primary.
We use these locking bands because if we use the regular bands, they'd pull it right off. So we actually have to crimp these to their leg so they cannot pull them off.
The feathers came up. The feathers came up on it like a hen. But the head was colored.
Because they require the crimp, it takes a lot of time to make sure that they're straight,
Yep.
that they fit. He's being very cooperative. This is very unusual. I'm going to use a latex glove here to pull a feather. This is for the DNA study that York College is participating in. I just blow on it so I can see what I'm doing. And it's just a little bit of tissue, skin tissue, and blood at the very end of the quill that we're after, because that's where the DNA will be. And I'll just take one more. Oh, that's much better. Okay.
Gotta get the pin feather.
Yep. Okay. Wow, he didn't even flinch. And then we're going to weigh him. Okay, we have a little over 1.25 pounds. That's it, right? Okay. So we aged him at about 5.5 weeks,
Turn him
between
a little.
5 and 5.5.
Okay.
Over here.
He's too busy.
I turned his body, but his head didn't want to turn. Go ahead. I gotta put him in timeout. All right. This is my second attempt out here. We already had banded 2 nests in Turbinville.
Right, and how was that?
They went fine. They were great.
No different.
Right. But we have a whole bunch of nests to do today that are the same age as yours.
Right.
I'm really curious to see what's going on with them. So the Barn Owl Conservation Initiative is a project that started with the Game Commission, the Pennsylvania Game Commission, 5 years ago. I started on this project 3 years ago, and since then we've banded approximately 300 barn owls throughout the state. 20 years ago, there was a Pennsylvania Breeding Bird Atlas, which volunteers scoured the state for basically to observe as many birds and count as many birds as they possibly could. In the last 2-3 years ago, the second Pennsylvania Breeding Bird Atlas completed, and they compared the results from the second Breeding Bird Atlas with the first, and they found that barn owls were rapidly disappearing from our state. They used to be fairly evenly distributed throughout the state, and now they're only found in some in certain pockets. So pockets like this one here in Northumberland County. I actually drive 3 hours just to get to this area because this is the closest to where I work that we find any barn owls. So the barn owls have moved to these smaller areas, and the reason that they're doing that we're finding is primarily due to the loss of habitat. They need good hunting grounds. They eat primarily rodents, so they need hay fields, fallow fields, places that harbor lots and lots of rodents so they have plenty to feed their young. And so we find that most Pennsylvania farms are getting smaller, or they're turning into developments, or they're being let go and allowed to grow into forested habitat, which is not a bad thing because Pennsylvania historically has been forested. However, for barn owls, which are grassland species, they require grassland, not forests. So when we come to areas that have hundreds and hundreds of acres of lands that are enrolled in the CREP program, fallow fields and hay fields, we find that the barn owls are doing very well. Another problem that the barn owls are experiencing is the loss of nesting habitat. Barn owls like to nest in old barns, and nobody's building, well, very few people other than maybe the Amish in Pennsylvania are building these old wooden structures. They're primarily reliant on new what's called pole barns, which are metal structures. They're prefabricated, they're put on a concrete slab, and they're pretty much bulletproof once they're assembled. Nothing can get in or out, which is great for keeping your equipment nice and dry, but it's not very good for barn owls because there's no way for them to enter into their into the barns. So the loss of these old barns is the loss of barn owl nesting habitat. So one of the things that the Barn Owl Conservation Initiative is working on is we're putting together these, we're providing nest box free of charge to any participants who have barn owl activity in their barns. That's a little bit about the Barn Owl Conservation Initiative with the Pennsylvania Game Commission.